Okay, hey, so here we are back at Bentonville at the Master Bike Builder Show. Beautiful day in Arkansas. And I'm sitting with my newest personality in my life.
Thank you.
Dean Wright. I met this guy last night, and I have to say, so again, I always preface everything, I've been doing this for 1,001 years, and I've met a whole lot of characters. This one just about takes the cake. He's got a great story about how he got to building bikes. He's a bike shop owner. And just like 5 minutes ago, he's going on trying to tell me how he smashed John Tomac in a bike race in Arizona, which I would not even listen about. But so we're not gonna give him that leeway today to talk about how he beat Tomac and Rishi Grewal in a bike race. But a wealth of industry knowledge and history, and more importantly, passion. This is the bike we're looking at here. Just beyond this bike here, you can see his version, hand built.
Fastback. Yeah.
His version of a Schwinn Fastback that's got so much thinking, just the details are crazy. And we're going to start, as much as we have time in the day and filming a camera, right that, Tony? We're going to start finding out more about him because he's got a story to tell. So I'm almost afraid to say, but take it away, Dean.
So I started building, I was a young bike racer back in the early 80s. And as most bike racers did, I was pulled into the bike industry to support my habit. My father was an avid cyclist and had hand-built frames made going back into the 70s, mainly Tom Teasdale. So my dad was a tool maker and traded tooling work with Tom for frames. In fact, my dad owns Teasdale #1. There's a little bit of dispute that Tiger Johnson's bike might have been one and my dad's too, but very, very early custom-made Tom Teasdale bikes. And so I'd known Tom and had seen that as a child, seen that bike getting built. Absolutely blew my mind that somebody could take pieces of tubing and make a bicycle out of it. And always wanted to be a frame builder. In second grade, I went to career day dressed in coveralls and a corncob pipe, because that's what Tom wore, as a frame builder on my little tag for what I wanted to be for a career. My teacher turned it inside out, wrote, "You're going to be a farmer," and put farmer on there. And it was,
wow.
But I did actually end up being a frame builder. Never farmed.
Yeah.
So.
And a bike shop owner, which we touched on last night, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Again, there's so much to talk about with him here, but let's see. Just tell us about see, I'm already confused. The bikes he has at his booth are just like this array of individuality and detail that's it's just so amazing. It's what sweeps me away when I think about frame builders and bike freaks like him. So tell us about this bike right here.
So this was a gravel bike I built for a friend of mine, and the bikes that I brought to this show, the theme of my kind of show is influence. So a lot of things have influenced me, from collecting Stingray bicycles as a child to early mountain biking and making clunkers. I have the Newsboy style bikes at my booth. And this gentleman here was a guy that when I started racing bikes in 1981, 82, was a local bike racing person and a little bit older than me, kind of brought me into the fold and taught me the ropes. I was really lucky. We had a great road racing scene there with the Jeff Bradley and Jackie Bradley, living there in the Quad Cities. I got to ride with them. Even occasionally Greg LeMond would pop into town. He was a friend of Jeff's. So we had a really strong scene. And this gentleman was somebody that I've always looked up to, and was really happy when he asked me to build him a bike.
Nice.
And, he's also a motorsports racing fan, so the Gulf colors and stuff are inspired by that. And this bike was painted by a close friend of mine, and who does vintage Italian motor scooter restorations. Amazing painter and artist, and so he was able to put together this paint scheme and color scheme, and I think it came out nice. It's a striking bike, I think, and it's a very functional, great riding bike.
As varied as your bikes are, obviously, we saw there, and this you were talking about last night. I mean, is there any single kind of design influence or philosophy that you have when it comes to building a bike? I mean, you're not just doing steel road bikes or aluminum mountain bikes or anything. You're doing everything. I mean, he makes this handlebar, for goodness sakes. I mean, just so awesome.
So once again, it's about influence and like throwback. So it's evolution of bicycles. I've been fortunate enough. So I worked for Tom Teasdale in the mid '80s when we were building Fisher's competitions in Mount Thames.
Right.
Philip Brazing, in which Philip Brazing was part of the evolution of mountain bikes, because the lugged bikes and lug frames didn't allow the flexibility for different size tubes and geometries. And so that's why they started doing it with Philip Brazing. They could quickly produce new geometries and styles of bicycles. And then at the same time, in California, the BMX thing was taking off. And you had guys coming out of the aerospace industry with this new technology called TIG welding. And then TIG welding was so much more rapid that it kind of overtook the Philip Brazing as a process to quickly do design changes on bicycles and stuff. But it was an art form that really didn't last very long. But a lot of my influences come. So the Bull Moose handlebars was an early mountain bike design. So there's some throwback stuff that it comes from those influences I had in my life. The Stingrays, I started as a child. I rode hundreds of miles. I grew up in a small community, and every kid had a Stingray, and we rode in gangs of Stingray riders around.
Keep going.
That's my influence back to that. So,
I mean, it's just so beautiful and amazing. I mean, I know we're all about road bikes, gravel bikes, blah, 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 but I mean, look at the split top tube. I mean, just gorgeous. You know, and he made his own stem. You know, I mean, it's just like an X-Yard railer, rear disc brake. He made the seat. I mean, tell us about the seat.
I did not make the seat. I'd like to take credit for it, but a local craftsman that does aluminum hammer form parts made that seat. And it's a aluminum design replica of the very first 1964 Stingray seat. So in '65, the seat changed shape and size, but I like the original seat design better, so that's why I went with that design on that. So
today, if someone calls you up and says, "I want to build a bike," would you be just as capable, or?
Yeah, I could reproduce this.
You knew where I was headed. Yeah. So I mean, you want a road bike, gravel bike, but we can also make one of these, huh? I mean, this is just so bitchin'. The detail work is just fabulous.
So once again, the Philip Brazing allows you to do very odd shapes and designs, and you know, you're not like pigeonholed into a lot of stuff. With this bike, getting the bends right on the tubing and fixturing it was, you know, the challenge for me. My jig and fixture is kind of an erector set. It's very flexible. I can make just about anything with it. I've made a quad bike, 4-person bike, lots of tandems, and BMX bikes to road bikes for 6'5" people.
Yeah, you got that bitchin' BMX bike was for your kid, right?
Yep. So my fixture is really flexible, but it's not really good for like mass production, rapid type stuff. Although once you get it set, you're making 5 or 6, you know, you could go through it. But I could reproduce that. You
know, it's so interesting when you talk about, you know, the TIG days and the lug days. It's, again, another facet of bike building technology that so many people don't know because it doesn't exist anymore. But I remember back in the early 90s, because Trek was all about lug frames for their mountain bikes. And then all of a sudden, you know, they discovered welding, like tubes instead of lugs. And it was like this big, I mean, advertising campaign, this huge deal, because all of a sudden they were not, you know, constricted by the lugs that they had, you know, a warehouse full of lugs. And I'm sure, you know, Mr. Brooks like, oh no, we're going to keep building those lug frames. You kidding? I got a truckload of lugs coming in, you know?
Exactly.
So they went until they used them all up, and then they discovered TIG frames.
Well, the 80s and 90s were an awesome time because there was all sorts of things going on. They were looking, so steel is an expensive material to make a bicycle frame out of.
Really?
Especially high-end bicycle tubing because it's, you know, mandrel drawn, heat-treated chromoly, you know, a lot of process intensive to get a good quality lightweight steel tube, and then to manufacture with it is difficult too, where aluminum is a very inexpensive material. It's like a fifth the cost of a steel frame to build an aluminum frame. And especially when hydroforming of aluminum tubing came out, then you could gain joint structure. You could change the size and shape of the joints,
Yeah.
and make up for the weakness of the material by engineering the joint to handle the stress, because you can change that size and shape of it. And aluminum being a lighter, less dense material, even though it's not as strong, you can make that tube large diameter, gain joint structure without making it so thin it would collapse like a pop can, which is what would happen if you tried to increase the joint in a steel tube and save the weight. So.
Right. And then just, we talked a little bit last night, but if we could just talk just a little bit again, this could go on forever, but he made a really curious distinction of the difference today between a bike shop and a bike store. And again, I don't want to get into some big industry long diatribe here about it, but it was really novel, and I thought was super important for bicycle people, enthusiast consumers to understand, at the very least, his idea of the difference between a bike shop and a bike store. So if you could just briefly what was your...
Yeah, so the most recent trend in kind of the general bike industry or bike shops and bike business in the United States is this trend to go to bike stores. The big companies, the big three, they're buying out small local shops and franchising it. So you go into a Trek store in Bentonville, or you go in, well, maybe not Bentonville is a bad example because they're kind of cool Trek store here, but Minneapolis, you go into the Trek store, the Trek factory-owned store, or Kansas City. Or
Scottsdale, San Diego.
It's like going into a McDonald's. You have the exact same feel, the same artwork, the same bikes on display. You have Bontrager tires or Bontrager tires. If it isn't sold by Trek or managed by Trek, it's not going to be in their store.
Yeah.
Well, that takes away the individual's ability to pick and choose the parts and products and things that they would ride or use and place them in their stores, or the things that they have passion or feel about, strongly about. It kind of takes that away, and that's the history in the United States for bike shops. Is kind of Schwinn took them out of a back alley shops and kind of transformed the industry, and then other people kind of added their thing. You go into my shop and there's going to be Stingrays in there.
Yeah.
There's going to be vintage bikes, and there's going to be high-end race bikes. I sent a bike over to the World Championships this year for the U23 World Championships, and at the same time I had, a kid Spider-Man bike on the other side of the stand. And that encompasses what a bike shop is. It's kind of like the analogy I made is buying a steak. If you go to a grocery store and buy a steak, you walk up to the meat counter and you look at the prepackaged goods there, and that's what you're going to get. But you go to a butcher shop and you can get a custom cut piece of meat, and you tell them how thick you want it, where you want that steak cut from. Yeah, price is going to be a little different maybe, and you have a relationship with the butcher. You have a conversation with him. You talk to him, he gives you his advice, and you give him your needs, and you come out at the end with a much better experience. Yeah. So. And
just telling you my own personal soapbox, just leading off that and using a food metaphor, like I was saying last night, to me it's just like, going to 31 flavors, and it's actually, they rebranded as just one flavor, and it's only vanilla. And again, as much as I've been in the bike industry, seeing bikes, look, all these girls on bikes riding by, women on bikes here, all these different kinds of bikes, different colors. And it's just like the bicycle is such an expression of individuality and passion and freedom. And I've been around the world, and you see all these great designs. When Mr. Colnago has, his blueprints up of drawings, it's just like to reduce everything to just like the same bike, the same tire, the same stem, and it's just like, it just kills me. And so, as much as the Mexican food truck over here was a real treasure, a jewel in a treasure box in Bentonville, I just want to say, honestly, you, sir, have been like the treasure chest of the show so far, because you've just, again, you just represent everything about the bike world that I think is so valuable and that needs to exist versus just chunking out, stinking the same uniform looking bikes day in and day out. So whether you're looking for a fastback replica, a fast looking road bike, or probably anything in between, he's the guy to see. And how do people find out more about you and your bike brand?
You can go to rightcyclesllc.com. That's our shop page. Instagram, Facebook, we're active on both platforms.
And the shop's located where exactly?
We're in Moline, Illinois, where Interstate 80 crosses the Mississippi River. And we're just a short jaunt on 74 over. pretty quick and easy to get to.
Okay, just because, again, this guy, I'm so enthralled by this guy, I'm going to give him 2 minutes to tell the world how he beat John Tomac in 1985, because no one's going to believe it, but let's at least give him the platform to let him say it. Go ahead.
Was Winter National Championships in a park, Papago Park, or no, not Papago, park outside of Phoenix. I was working as a mechanic for Tempe Bike Shop down there, and I had just bought a Miata 610 cycle or a road bike and made it into a cyclocross bike because I didn't have a mountain bike yet. Poor bike racer, couldn't afford it. And the Winter National Championships were coming. I was a pretty accomplished Cat 2 road racer. Liked to ride off-road, moved down to Arizona so that I could. And so I signed up, and it was a time trial format, the 2 best times out of 3. And I was on a road bike. It was super hard packed, desert surface, and they were on big fat tire mountain bikes. And I had the first and the third fastest time. So, and then I tacoed a wheel on the 3rd lap, and so I didn't even get a chance to get all 3 laps
robbed of victory.
Yeah, it was a big rock drop off with a short turn, and I came off too fast, couldn't make the turn, and tacoed my front wheel because it was cheap Miata wheel, you know. So,
well, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this right here, what you're looking at, this is what makes the bike industry worthy of being in the bike industry right here. And I really appreciate you coming down here to Bentonville, showing off the bikes, telling us your stories, and just, again, the artistry is something to think about. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right.